Hi, welcome to Wonder Women Talk Show. My name is Flor. On this show, we interact with women who are striving for their purposes. As we say that everyone has a purpose on this earth, and we give chance to people to tell their stories. Today, I'm joined by NAMENE NUYOMA, a young lady who became a nurse at the age of 22. As I say, she's a registered nurse by profession. She's a gospel artist, and also she is a poet. Hi, NAMENE.
Hi, Flor.
Welcome to our show.
Thank you.
Tell us who is NAMENE, where were you born, and how was life growing up?
I would say NAMENE is a very confident, curious, courageous young lady. I was born in Ngobe village and I grew up in Oshakati in Okere location. I grew up with my aunt, a sister to my mom. In 2008, I moved to my other aunt, a sister to my mom again. So I grew up with them in Oshakati.
All right. How do you define yourself as NAMENE, despite of what the world is saying or what people want to define you?
I would say she is of the... I actually prefer referring myself as to she, even if I'm speaking about myself. I would say she is of the palaces, a princess of cheerfulness, authenticity, and a gifted young lady. I would say that's who I am.
You became a nurse at the age of 22. You were quite very young. Most of people at that age are still in high institutions. Did you jump 1 year, or how did you do it to become a nurse at the age of 22?
I think it's all a matter of grace. I didn't have to do a thing. All I did was put my mind to what I had, which was study in school. I have a gift of hard work, I would say. I believe in putting my effort to something that I should do. So I would say I became a nurse at the age of 22 because I was put in school from my early age. Then I just went with the process. I put my effort, I studied, then eventually I became a nurse.
So has nursing always been your passion, or it was just an escaping route from unemployment that is so high in Namibia?
Actually, it hasn't been my passion. What I love is listening to people with their problems and just being there, try to feel with them. That's what I can do best. But nursing, I would say that when I completed my high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I had so much in mind that I think I could do, and I've always believed that I can actually do anything that I am sort of trained to do. I wanted to do education, I wanted to do food scientist, I wanted to do media. I just wanted to do everything, and I told myself I can do it. So once I completed my high school, I didn't acquire enough points that qualify me to do psychology. And I always had the fear looking at the industry, our market in terms of psychology is not really something that is considered or something that is looked at. So after I completed, I had a few points and they could qualify me for education and for nursing. And so I applied for education and nursing, but I wasn't accepted. But then I got to go into nursing school. So I told myself, why not grab the opportunity? It's not necessarily something I would say I do not love, but it is part of who I am in nursing, because I can still get to look at people and see that they're really struggling and just grab that opportunity and talk to them. So I enjoy what I do.
That's good. Now, every career path has its own challenges, and I know nursing has greater challenges, knowing that you deal with people from different age group, different cultures. What is the greatest challenge that you face as a nurse?
I think with coming to challenges, one thing I would say is language. Barrier, that's another thing. I am not gifted when it comes to languages. I struggle. I tried, especially with Africans, just to know the basic. I'm just not getting there. And you know, most of the people, especially in Windhoek, they speak, at least they could understand Afrikaans or Shirelo and other languages, but I'm just struggling. And that's the barrier that we have, because now patients don't get to express themselves fully, because sometimes you're so comfortable in your vernacular, But because I cannot speak their vernacular, not even the basics, they would use English, but they wouldn't really completely express how they feel. So it's a little bit difficult because you don't really get to understand what the person is going through, because they are just giving you sort of a basic surface of how they're feeling, but it would be deep expression in their vernacular. So that's the biggest thing I face.
Is there something that you are doing about it? Are you learning a new language? You get someone to help you to translate for them so they can express themselves fully, or?
Actually, I'm a go-getter. I would say that. So what I do is I try. Even though it's difficult, I still do. I try to like at work, I have helpful people that help me speak, especially Africans. They help me do, and I speak even though I'm not getting it right. I still do it anyhow.
That's good.
Oshihiro, I still ask, how do you greet? How do you do this? The basics, I'm willing to learn, and I have people that are helping me.
Namine, despite your nursing profession, you are also passionate about writing music and poems. When did you discover that you are so gifted in music and poetry?
Actually, on the point of discovering, I am not really so sure when I did. But all I could say is, growing up, the only moment I could remember is when I was 5 years of age. Before I was departed to school, I was always singing home. My mom would write songs and we go sing at church. Okay. But then when I went for pre-grade, I remember I would always sit at the front of the car, like in the middle of the car, and I would be there singing from home until we get to school. I just love it ever since I was little. But in regards to poetry, I haven't really been somebody who is so expressive. And one of my friends taught me that if you are you don't have that ability to express yourself, maybe you should write, because he knew I love writing. So I started then putting my writings. When I put my expressions into writing, I've realized that my writing is just not a writing. There's something special in the way I write, because it's not like other normal writing. Then one day I decided to share one of my writing that I have put in my book. Then he was like, you can actually do poetry. And then I now started to share a lot of them that I have written, and I started to write more. And the more I wrote, the more I saw that I could actually do that. And that was last year, 2019. That's when I noticed that I could actually do that.
You mentioned that you couldn't express yourself fully. You prefer writing. Was there something that led you to not being expressive? Was there a point when you were growing up you wanted to express yourself, but no one had a chance to listen to you, perhaps?
I think that has been the case. I have always felt not understood. I would be there and wanting to say something, but I would just think, they cannot understand. If they're reasoning this way, then they cannot understand the expressions of my heart. I am not really sure. By then, I wouldn't really figure out what is it exactly that led me to that way. But there were times where I started searching because I didn't understand myself. Why can't I express? I didn't understand really what was happening. But then I just felt like I was holding myself back, because I believed that people wouldn't really sort of accept what I have to say, because I felt like my thinking is just too way deep. I didn't know other people could receive it. Yeah.
Now there is this thing in the society that when a young woman achieves so much at their age, like at the age of 22, you already become a nurse, then men will be intimidated by you and they won't even ask you out, or you end up being you won't get a man. How do you deal with that notion that we have in the society?
Yeah, that's quite a tough question for me. I think it's actually the truth there. As for me, I don't know the expression they have of me. If they have it, they don't say it out to me. But one thing I have seen is that most of them don't really know what I do. And it's just not my thinking. Some of them have actually expressed it to me. Like when they see me in uniform, you would see the way they're asking the questions. They're so surprised, like, oh, so you're a nurse, you do this. And some actually think I'm a scholar. I remember there was one man, he looked so old, in his 50s maybe there, and I took a cab. and we were engaging in a conversation, and he said something like, if somebody is coming to you, approaching you, actually somebody of my age, then you would tell them that you're too old enough to be my dad. Like everybody who is below 20, he said such a comment. Then I'm like, but I'm not below 20. Then he was like, no, you're just 15. But it was this year. So I laughed and looked at myself and said, oh wow, that's how people look, and that's how people see me, as they see me as a young person, as a little girl, and still a scholar. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah, quite interesting indeed. And there's so much peer pressure in among girls, ne? And what you do, something like you'll see they have nails. That is what we see in the society. That is now what is acceptable, and wigs. And I saw you coming in here. Wow, at her age, she's being herself. So how do you handle peer pressure?
I think it's something that is nurtured within me. I would say it's a gift of grace. I love to look me and being simple. But having said that, I wouldn't say there were not days or times where I wanted to look like the other person, because I feel like that's what people want me to look like. But I would remember growing up, my mom especially, she loved plating and she loved people looking nice, and I understand that about her. So she would want to plate me, but I wouldn't want, and she would still do it. And like I said, I wasn't very expressive, so I would just let her do it until I got in high school. And I remember one day telling her that if you're still coming to plate me, then I'll cut myself just half of it, so you would cut it off. Then she said, it's okay, you can just be like that if that's what you really want. And I would still remember a few of the individuals would tell me that you can just go plait. I can, do your hairstyle, I'll pay for that. And I would still go do it, but I wasn't really happy having to do it. I used to tell myself, if it's not necessarily hurting me, then I can just do it for them. But I didn't know it was actually hurting who I am and killing my self-confidence then. So I realized then, I think that was since 2016, that's when I started just to look into so many things and just told myself that just actually do what you can do. But I still went back and forth. But last year, I had to decide that I should just live who I am and what I'm comfortable in. I still struggle. It's life challenges are out there. You look at other people and sometimes they come and comment at you and say, but why can't you just do this? Why can't you just play it like the other one? Why can't you weave? I'm like, I can literally afford all those things, but it's just not what entices me. I'm comfortable in how I look. I think it's just a gift. I pray also. I remember there was a day my sister came to visit me from the north, and that day I was coming to work, and I had made a little funny hairstyle that not everybody would just accept. So before I left for work, I remember I did it, and I looked myself in the mirror and I prayed a prayer and said, God, I know when I leave this place, people would have their comments on me, but just give me the confidence to just not to let their words get to me, because I see this and I like this, but I know they won't do that. And then when I get to work, it actually did happen. A lot of them commented, but how can you do this? What is this? But I had the confidence to say, you know what, this is what I have done, and I don't give you the right to go do what you should do with yourself. I do me, then you do you. I just had that confidence to say, this is who I am, so let me be me.
You mentioned that a friend of yours offered volunteer to pay for your hairstyle, thinking maybe the way you are is because you can't afford one. Do you think people are doing this because we are supposed to look a certain way in the society, or when you do that it's just not acceptable?
I think I don't really like speaking for others. I don't know what the reasoning are, but my thinking is a lot of people out there are actually not so comfortable with themselves, not because they don't want to, but it's because of societal pressures.
Yeah.
We grew up in a society where certain things are imposed on us, especially for my culture. they do that, they impose it on you, you do it and you grow up with it, then you just live with it thinking it's normality. But then when you happen to grow, you get to a point of realization to see that certain things are just not necessarily, and they are not you. Then when you get to that point of searching and yearning to find who you really are, then you will get to understand that all these things that people do is just because other people do it, and they don't really know how to stand out and come out and be them because they are afraid of criticism, because it's there.
You mentioned that growing up, your mother would braid your hair. Knowing that our parents are our primary caregivers and we are molded in the environment where we grow, what is the greatest reason you learned from your mother or your father that shaped you to be who you are today?
I would say what I learned from my mom was always be content with what you have and work hard, go study. Those were the words. Every time I would go home, back to school, she would say that 10 times again, be content with what you have and study. So it have sort of made me who I am, because then I look at myself and I see myself as enough. Even if I could see at other things and want them, then I remind myself that, remember, just be content. Whatever it is that is within you, besides you, it's enough for you, and you should just have that.
So if you were to summarize your life in few words, what is your purpose?
I think my purpose is on worshiping. It's basically ministry. I think I'm called to just serve others, as in singing for them, speaking words of courage to them through my writings, through my speaking. I think that's what I am called for.
What are some of the principles that has guided you in your purpose?
Principles. I would say what have guided me is, I tell myself that I am very talented and gifted, and I carry myself by the standard of my father. So what guides me in life is the principles of my father. I love the Bible, and I love praying a lot, and I love listening. So every word that gets to me, either from reading or from people, I take into consideration. And I love reading a lot, so that guides me in my life, because they say, I have a belief that knowledge is power. So I look out for knowledge, because I believe that when I have it, then I base my life on that. I'm a lady of so many limitations. So it's more like, if I just read books, what the book says is what I do. I guide myself within that context of what I do. I read, I do. It's more of, you see this, you practice it. So that's what helps me become who I am. Reading, most especially the Bible, and educational books on life, issues of life.
What are some of the books that you have read that helped you so much?
I have read Purpose Driven by Rick Warren. It has helped me in understanding that people will just be people, and we have differences, and I shouldn't focus on the differences, but I should focus on the commonalities and just ignore the differences, because they have their areas, I have mine. But if I focus on what we can do similar, then I can go far with that. I've also read Every Woman's Battle by Shannon. It have helped me. It sort of validated me, because I've gotten to a point where I just could not understand myself and what was happening within me. So I was sort of searching and yearning, and I felt like people just don't understand what I'm going through. So I had to read that, and it just sort of validated me and gave me an understanding that you're just growing to be a woman, to be a sexual creature that you're created, and there's nothing wrong with being you. I have read a lot. If I have to mention all of them, I can't finish. I have read Growth Has No Boundaries. That has helped me to say that in life, we put so many principles and limitations for ourselves because of the society we are in and standards that are groomed in us. But there is no boundaries in life. It's actually not up to us. There is somebody who is all supreme, and he's the one who he can stretch us beyond our soul, beyond our capabilities. But life sort of just, we put limitations for ourselves to tell ourselves that we can only end here. But it's up to God to say that you think you can end here, but I can stretch you beyond because I have authority over your life. I have also read The Seat of the Soul. I haven't finished that one, but it have sort of also just validated the illusions I have about life, that we are not just us being the physical being, but there is something so deep within our soul, something that is so powerful, and that is it's more like a fire and a light, and it can take us far. What we need is just to believe that there's something greater inside us, and it's very powerful. It's not the external power of what we see, but it's something that is, I cannot put it to words, but
it's inside power.
It's inside power.
Yes.
Yeah, I can end there.
You have so much wisdom at your age, and you mentioned that you turned to books when you wanted to understand, because you couldn't understand at all what is wrong with people. You felt something that was wrong with people because they couldn't reason the way you reason. So you turned to books to read. Yeah. Have you ever felt like, I need to go to my parents?
I actually never did. Reason being is, my mom is just more like, okay, I would say my mom, because my dad, we don't really speak as in engage. I speak more with my mom. But reason why there are points I thought of turning to her, but the inside me was just stopping me. Not that she's not welcoming or something, but I remember there was a day I made a joke with her. It was just a joke, and I just wanted to test her reasoning. And she's mentioned something which sort of just pushed me back. She's a lady of so many limitations, just like me. She doesn't welcome everything. So now with that, I just felt like she cannot understand certain things that I'm experiencing, and I didn't feel so comfortable to go to her, because I felt like if I have to go to her, then I wouldn't be helped. I would just sort of be pushed back to where I was, and it wouldn't be helpful. So I never thought of turning back to her. There are certain things I would say, like, let me go to her, but certain things I just feel like, Mommy, you won't understand. That's what I told myself.
Yeah, and that is what normally happens, that our daughters have so much things that is going on with their lives, but as parents, we are not welcoming them to speak. Would you advise parents to at least listen to their daughters? And not everybody would turn to books the way you did. Some would turn into drugs, and it will not end well. Would you advise, do you have some advice that you give to parents so they can be at least welcoming with their daughters?
I think one thing I would want them to know is that they are parents, and they love us so dearly, and we know that. But their love is too much, to an extent that it's no longer love, it's control, and it doesn't help. I'm not saying that they should be too lenient, and I wouldn't say they should be too strict, because too much of everything is wrong. Strict people, they raise bad kids, and too lenient mothers, they also raise bad kids. It's not a matter of what they do. They can do all their best, but it's not up to them to decide. So it's all up to God. Life is not on our own. So what I would say is, they should do their best that they can do to help us, but they shouldn't put so many limitations, thinking that maybe, like one thing I know for sure is, for our culture, especially the Ovambo people, they have so many limitations into, for so to say, there are certain things that they think they shouldn't be spoken about with their kids growing up.
There is certain type of conversations you should have with them, and they are just conversations you shouldn't have with your parents, especially when it comes to relationships. You don't discuss that with your parents. And
that's the point with me. I can understand where they're coming from, that if I have to say maybe this, then the kids would get out of hands, or they would do certain things.
Exactly.
But the honest truth is that even the Bible said, know the truth, and the truth will set you free. for me, it's more of they have so much fear into letting us know, thinking that if we know, then we get so exposed to certain things that will lead us the wrong way. But my belief is that the more you let us know, the earlier the better, because then we get to understand certain things, and we'll also have sort of openness to be so vulnerable with them that instead of running for comfort from outside sources, we can get so closer. Because even with God, that's what he wants with us. He wants us to be so dependent on him that we can look for comfort. But us now, when we grow up, we grow sort of externally away from our parents, because we feel like there's so much control and so much fear here, and they just do not understand certain things. And we can understand, but my point is that the parents, they should allow us to be free, to be comfortable. They should develop that environment of friendliness around them, that we can go to them actually without having to fear that they can say this. One thing I would like to relate to that is that I would also want them to have child monitoring when the children are growing up. I would advise that they should do monitoring with their kids, in a sense that they just look at what the kids are doing, what the things they are doing, as in behavior, as in reading, what the friends they stay, the kids they hang out with, and all those things. Because for me, I grew up sort of self-isolated. I didn't understand. Now I get to ask myself, because I get to a point where I know that that's not really who I am. I am so open and so vulnerable, but I wasn't like that growing up. I was so self-isolated. But I remember when I was in grade 2, I used to stay in a house, and there was a lady who was sort of renting closer to us, and we just had, like, after news, we would go to her and watch so many things, DVD players, action movies, and what. And I remember when I was in grade 2, I started watching pornography until grade 4. I can remember, because from then I moved to my other aunt, and there was no electricity, so I couldn't watch TV. But then the fact that I could start watching those things from the age of grade 2, other kids can be exposed to so many things, not just necessarily watching, but it can also be action. But if the parents could just look into, if they can just do child monitoring, it would help prevent all these things. Because for me, it was trauma. I couldn't see it, but growing up, I could understand that it sort of just traumatized and infected me. I couldn't express it outwardly, but I felt so congested in a place, because I didn't feel safe around so many things, especially men, because I felt like this is who they are and they are not safe to be around with. But it's just one thing I have watched from an early age, and it have traumatized me, really, I could say. So child rearing and child monitoring would be one thing I would advise them to do, and just to be open with their kids, to allow them to be free with them, so that we can openly speak about what we are going through in life.
Do you think there is something different that your parent could have done? You ending up watching pornography when you were just in grade 2. Was it perhaps lack of supervision from your parents?
I wouldn't really say it's probably lack of supervision, but we are so busy in this world. We have so many things to do, and it's more like our focus now is on things and not people anymore. So I would say that's the issue there. There were two, like where I was staying with my aunt. She was a business lady, and she was always busy on the business, because that's what she could do to support us. And I appreciated that. I wouldn't really say it was, I would say it was lack of supervision, but it wasn't sort of probably self-motivated. It was something that she was doing unknowingly, because her concern is on, I have to go do business, I have to feed my kids, I have to feed my sister's kids. So I feel like we are at an era whereby we are so focused on things and we ignore people. But life, it's all about just us and others. That's why we have so many people on earth, for us to relate to each other, for us to learn from one another, for us to spend more time with others rather than spending with things. I think that's the problem.
Yeah, we are running out of time, but I love the point that you said, that we are so much focused on things and not people. It's so sad that you would find someone living with people, but they don't care about their emotional well-being. As long as they give, all their mind is on what I can achieve. I want to do this and that. But the people you are living with, they are dying emotionally, and you don't care. Our human beings' mind is now on things rather than on people. If we can start caring with people before achieving things, it will be much different. But thank you so much, Namine. That was a very great insight. There we have it, viewers. We have learned so much. I wish I can prolong this time with her. There are things that we can avoid as parents. We should monitor what our kids are watching. It's not, some of the things could do damage for a very long time. And as I said, we all have a purpose on earth, and if you can tell who you are enough. You don't need people's validation, and believe me, they don't matter. Stand your ground, focus, and all glory be to God. Thank you.